Tonight, remembering the life of George Floyd.
He did what?
That changed the world.
As protests carry on, Floyd's loved ones honor the life of a man whose death sparked a movement in America. And
all Americans are equal before the law. They are entitled to equal justice under the law.
We sit down with the Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, plus the latest on the coronavirus crisis in America. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Paying tribute to the life of George Floyd. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup. In Minneapolis today, the first of 3 services around the country remembering George Floyd, the man who died pleading for air as a police officer pressed his knee into Floyd's neck. Floyd's family told personal stories about growing up in Houston, good times amidst poverty, and the way Floyd made people feel special. The family's attorney described Floyd dying of a pandemic he called racism. Political activist Al Sharpton delivered the eulogy and called for an end to racial discrimination.
The reason why we're marching all over the world is we were like George. We couldn't breathe, not because there was something wrong with our lungs, but you wouldn't take your knee off our neck.
Sharpton announced a massive march planned here in Washington to take place August 28th, the anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s original March on Washington. Well, the memorial service was held at North Central University, a Christian school in Minneapolis. Jennifer Wishon has more on why it was selected.
That's right. Pastor Rich Wilkerson and his wife, Robin, serve as chancellors of the university. And Pastor Rich Wilkerson joins me now. Pastor, tell us, why is North Central University in Minneapolis the right place for people to gather today to remember the life of George Floyd?
Well, first of all, it's a Christian place. It's a great university. It's just 90 years old. It is about a mile and 2 to 3 blocks from where the tragedy took place a week ago Monday. And it's a diverse school. It's a school that champions Black Americans, Hispanics, Asian Americans, all people. And so what's so surreal for me, Jen, is that 49 years ago, I entered this school as a freshman in the fall of 1970. And so it's very meaningful to so many of us. And I believe that the Floyd family, it is our heartfelt desire that they are embraced today and loved today.
Well, as the nation learns more about George Floyd today, about his Christian walk, is this a moment for Americans to begin to heal?
Yeah, I mean, let's say you have a relative die. How long does it take you to heal? Emotionally, psychologists tell us that this kind of a death, any death of someone that is in the prime of their life, it's usually about an 18-month emotional cleansing. I don't know if this kind of event can ever be completely expunged from our conscience, but I believe healing is always possible. We're Jesus people, and that's who he is.
You know, as a journalist, I know that there is going to come a day where another event is going to catch the attention of Americans. The cameras are going to leave Minneapolis and they're going to move on to the next story. It's going to happen. It always does. Do you fear that this moment is going to pass without anything changing?
Today, Dr. Scott Hagan, the president of North Central University, a brilliant scholar, appealed to the presidents of America's universities to join North Central University in starting the George Floyd Scholarship Fund for the next generation of young Black Americans who so desperately need not a handout, but a leg up.
Pastor, what is the church's responsibility, some would say mandate, grave responsibility, coming out of this latest example of injustice?
In my estimation, it's what is the weight that is on the shoulders of the white American church. That's I think what it comes down to. What are we as white people going to do? This is a day for Christian people to pick up their cross, as did Jesus, and walk up that lonely hill, even if it means people that are friends standing against us. We must stand for righteousness, truth, justice. We must present Jesus the way, the truth, and the life.
Amen. Pastor Wilkerson, thank you so much for joining us on this special day.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer. Well, Attorney General William Barr says African Americans across the country lack confidence in the criminal justice system, announcing today he'll meet with the DOJ. He'll meet with them at the DOJ's Law Enforcement Commission to figure out ways to address inequalities within the system.
And in the weeks and months ahead, we will be working with community leaders to find constructive solutions so that Mr. Floyd's death will not have been in vain. We will work hard to bring good out of bad.
Well, in recent days, the Attorney General has faced fierce criticism for ordering the clearing of protesters from a park across from the White House so the president could take his picture in front of St. John's Church. Well, prosecutors have taken further actions against the fired Minneapolis officers involved in Floyd's death. Still, protests around the country aren't letting up. Former officer Derek Chauvin is now charged with second-degree murder. Bail has been set for $750,000 for the other three seen in the video. CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson has more.
Protesters around the country are celebrating the fact prosecutors finally met one of their demands, putting all four officers involved in George Floyd's death behind bars.
We got all four! We got all four!
George Floyd's son welcomed the news yesterday afternoon.
I am happy that all the officers have been arrested. My father have not been killed like this. We deserve justice.
Despite the fact many major cities are under curfews beginning as early as 7 p.m., protests and arrests continued into the night, coast to coast.
I'll get myself up, just stop!
With police trying to allow peaceful demonstration while keeping violence under control.
From day one, from Thursday night, we've been facing rocks, bottles, bricks.
President Trump also facing new criticism from his former defense secretary. General James Mattis denounced the president in an essay in The Atlantic, writing, "Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime who does not try to unite the American people, does not even pretend to try. Instead, he tries to divide us." He also took issue with Monday's military response prior to the presidential photo op at St. John's Church, adding, "We must reject any thinking of our cities as a battle space that our uniformed military is called upon to dominate. At home, we should use our military only when requested to do so on very rare occasions by state governors. Militarizing our response, as we witnessed in Washington, D.C., sets up a conflict, a false conflict, between the military and civilian society." Current Defense Secretary Mark Esper took a similar view on involvement of military, saying Wednesday that the decision to use active military forces in a law enforcement role should only be used as a last resort, adding, "We are not in one of those situations now." Reporting from Virginia, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
CBN's Abby Robertson, thank you so much. Well, also here in Washington tonight, the Justice Department is now deciding whether to proceed with federal charges in Floyd's death. CBN's David Brody has the story.
I can't breathe. Shut up. They will kill me. They will kill me, man.
It's become an image seared into our collective mind.
Well, David, I've watched the video of what happened and led to Mr. Floyd's death, and I will say the video is very disturbing and very troubling.
Eric Dryban leads the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice. He will oversee whether federal civil rights charges will be filed in the case. And the president wants the situation expedited.
The investigation is a high priority of ours. We're also working with state and local officials. But we will make an independent judgment, and we are about whether or not federal criminal charges or other action is warranted by the federal government.
If the DOJ moves forward, it would be under what is known as color of law prosecution. Law enforcement officers are generally given quite a bit of authority and leeway to safeguard justice, but it's a crime for anyone serving under color of law protection to violate the constitutional or federally protected rights of an individual.
We've prosecuted many police officers, other law enforcement officials around the country under that statute in criminal cases, and we will continue to do that.
Critics aren't so sure that there will be a good outcome. They point to past reluctance by this administration to pursue federal investigations against law enforcement agencies. Ultimately, time will tell if this case leads to federal civil rights charges, but the larger issue remains the state of race relations in America.
David, we have, I think, in our country both a proud and a tragic history when it comes to civil rights issues. And I think what I've tried to do in working with our team of lawyers and investigators and others is convey that here in this country, all Americans are equal before the law. They are entitled to equal justice under the law, and that our goal is to account for and be mindful of the tragedies that have happened in our country, a history of lynchings and slavery and other things, but at the same time to acknowledge that many people in our history have acted in a heroic way to bring about civil rights protections for all Americans.
For Dryban, one of those brave citizens is abolitionist Frederick Douglass, who escaped slavery and became known as the father of the civil rights movement in America. His portrait hangs near Dryban's office.
And I think as I go about my job on a day-to-day basis, I always look at the portrait that we have of Frederick Douglass and try to take inspiration from that.
In the meantime, the nation is watching and waiting. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Indeed, watching and waiting. Well, in other news, the 3 Georgia men charged in the death of a young black man out on a jog were in court today. The special prosecutor in the case outlined how the men repeatedly trapped Ahmaud Arbery with their pickup trucks as he tried to get away. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation detailed how one suspect then left his truck and shot Arbery 3 times. Special prosecutor Jesse Evans says the 25-year-old was, quote, chased, hunted down, and ultimately executed. Video of the attack has been widely circulated. In today's hearing, the state was presenting evidence to support the murder charges brought against father and son Greg and Travis McMichael, as well as William Roddy Bryan, who prosecutors allege stood over Arbery uttering racial slurs before police arrived. The Justice Department has launched a hate crime investigation into the killing. We'll be right back after this.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN Newswatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN Newswatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
And welcome back. More tough news tonight on the employment front. 1.9 million people, additional workers, applied for unemployment last week. That translates into 11 consecutive weeks now of new jobless claims in the millions, totaling more than 42 million since the pandemic began. The May unemployment rate will be released Friday. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has warned it could be as high as 25%. Well, health-wise, the population hit hardest by the pandemic is people over 65 years old, but the virus is having a disturbing effect on some younger adults. Now doctors are looking closely at the link between COVID-19 and the risk of stroke. Lori Johnson reports.
In New York and New Jersey, young adults in their 30s and 40s with COVID-19 are experiencing the most serious type of stroke. Although the numbers are small, it's a sharp increase.
What we think is happening with the COVID virus is that it is thickening people's bloods. In other words, it's thrombogenic. So there is some evidence that younger people may be affected by the COVID just because of that fact of the virus.
That thickening can lead to blood clots in vessels leading to the brain, causing a stroke. Doctors must act fast to remove the clot and get the patient out of danger.
Every minute counts because once the blood supply is missing to the brain, cells begin to die pretty quickly.
COVID-19 is also affecting treatment of this condition in other ways.
New figures show some people who would normally seek medical care for a stroke may now hesitate because they're afraid of catching COVID at the hospital.
Sharon Robinson had a stroke at the peak of the COVID crisis. Despite the potential danger, her daughter called 911.
Primarily, my mother was having a stroke. So that was bigger than a fear of COVID-19. And I also have faith in God, so Jesus, to be specific. So it was more of a faith thing.
Sharon recovered fully.
I just praise God. Everything was just marvelous. Everything, it was quick. I was in the hospital only 2 days. And the doctors was like, this is so unbelievable.
She's now featured in a video encouraging the public to follow her example.
Don't fear to call 911 because people like us, the people who do thrombectomies, we're here. We're at the hospitals. We gear up and we're ready to handle patients who have potential COVID and may be having a stroke.
Stroke symptoms include face drooping, arm weakness, and difficulty speaking. While Sharon lives with her daughter, people who live alone are at greater risk, especially during this pandemic.
And then when you're told to stay away from people staying home, there's not that good network of people to check on each other.
So make frequent phone calls to older family members and friends. Ask questions about how they feel. Also, be aware of the signs and symptoms of a stroke, knowing it could help save a life. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Protests and the pandemic. Could demonstrators start a second wave? We talk with an expert about that and more when we come back.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians are
Christians in Iran are routinely arrested.
Catholic Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Welcome back. Here with us now is Dr. Jen Ashton, Chief Medical Correspondent for ABC News. Dr. Ashton, it's always a treat to have you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Dr. Ashton, the coronavirus pandemic has killed, as you know, more than 100,000 people in this country. A lot, if not most, of these protesters that we're seeing are wearing masks with little to no social distancing. Are we going to see a resurgence in the wake of the ongoing protests?
Well, I definitely think it's possible, and it's something that infectious disease specialists and public health officials, epidemiologists alike, are all keeping an eye on. But to be clear, we have to remember that it's not just the protests or demonstrations that would be or could be responsible for an uptick in cases. The virus hasn't gone anywhere, so it's not going to miraculously disappear just because we've all stayed indoors for 1 or 2 months. So it's really about learning how to live with it as safely as possible and to lower risk, because obviously we can't bring our risk to zero. So yes, masks are very, very important, especially when we know that such a large percentage of people can be infected with COVID-19 and show no symptoms at all. But the other factors, time, more than 10 or 15 minutes in a given environment or situation, density of people in that area, how much space there is apart between people, and whether you're indoors or outdoors, all of those play a factor.
Just as you said, we're learning to try to live with this safely. Meanwhile, states across the country are entering the phase of reopening, the next phase of reopening. What's this summer going to look like in terms of transmissibility?
Well, no one has a crystal ball. I think that we first have to recognize that what we've been through in the last, 3 to 6 months has been very, very difficult in many ways on literally everyone. Depending on where you live, could be a lot worse in the country. So I think that we're going into uncharted territory, and it's really about taking any steps we can to lower our risk, to mitigate that risk, not just for ourselves, but for the vulnerable people potentially around us that we could potentially infect. And, we have to dip our toe in these unfamiliar waters of what going out to eat may look like, what travel may look like, what camps or outdoor congregations of different types of gatherings will look like. And right now, I think that all public health officials are stressing this is the time to use an abundance of caution and to proceed slowly.
There have been some questions regarding the foundations of the Lancet Medical Journal about hydroxychloroquine, but there's a new study that found hydroxychloroquine, which is that anti-malarial drug that the president has touted as a possible treatment for COVID-19, did not help prevent coronavirus infections. That's in the New England Journal. What's the message here?
Well, I think here's the story behind the story. In medicine, in science, we continue to learn every day. Aspirin has been out for quite some time. we're still doing studies on aspirin. So we haven't heard the definitive word on hydroxychloroquine. It's being studied in randomized clinical trials, not only as treatment, but also potentially as prevention. Right now, there's been really no positive data, but there also haven't been the most perfectly constructed trials. So the research will continue, not just for that drug, but for many, many others. And for right now, people do need to understand that when you make a decision in medicine, it's about balancing potential benefits versus potential risks versus any options and alternatives that may exist. And right now, according to the FDA, we just don't have any data to suggest that this drug is safe or effective in prevention or treatment. That doesn't mean we won't learn that in the future. That's just what we know at this point.
Right in the here and now. Dr. Jen Ashton, thank you for your expertise and being with us this afternoon.
Pleasure to be with you.
Leaving behind a big paycheck to give back through the gift of art. We'll explain after this.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Well, finally tonight, old world masterpiece paintings have sold for millions, but one Dutch museum has just received a generous donation, all due to the global pandemic. When the economic downturn stopped the sale of the masterpiece Body of Christ supported by angels, its owner decided to take a financial loss and instead of selling, donated the painting. They gifted it to Amsterdam's Rijksmuseum in memory of COVID-19 victims. And what a generous donation indeed. Well, thank you so much for watching Faith Nation tonight. We appreciate you spending your evening with us and hope to see you again tomorrow.